Hello, everyone. My name is Ismail Shahtakhtinski, and I'm the principal immigration attorney at IS Law Firm. Today is October 19, 2023, 12:33 p.m. Washington, D.C., New York time, and we have our weekly live stream on immigration topics where I will briefly discuss an immigration topic, news about the CBP1 process, which is the processing at the southern border with Mexico for asylum applicants. And then I will answer all of the questions from our audience members in the chat section. For everyone who joined us, please subscribe to our channel. Please press like. I greatly appreciate this. Please don't leave without pressing like. That's extremely important for us to be able to continue these live streams. So today's topic is CBP1, Customs and Border Patrol, which is what CBP stands for. And CBP1 is an app program through which asylum applicants can arrive in Mexico and register and enter the United States. So most of you already know what the CBP1 is, how this app works, but I'll briefly go over it, and then I'll give you updates about the news on the CBP1 processing, current wait times, what are the options, what to do and what not to do. So CBP1 is an app which can be downloaded while you are and used to register while you are in northern Mexico or central Mexico. It doesn't work if you're in another country, and you will not be able to register with this app if you're in another country or if you're in southern Mexico. So you have to be close to the US border to be able to use this to register, to get your place in line for the processing through southern border if you are applying for asylum, applying for parole in the United States. As a result of this, the Customs and Border Patrol will schedule, the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol will schedule an appointment with you where they will briefly interview you, ask you questions, review your documents, and typically they will process you and allow you to enter the U.S. With a notice to appear in immigration court for your removal proceedings, where you can actually request asylum in the US in front of the immigration judge and ask for asylum. So this is an orderly process, relatively orderly compared to someone crossing the border illegally as undocumented or entry, what we call entry without inspection. The purpose of this is to create an order in the processing. Obviously, the US government is unable to prevent all of the border crossings. So to discourage people from from entering the United States illegally, they created this program where asylum applicants may come to the US. Anyone who has fear of persecution in their home country can arrive in the United States through southern border and apply for asylum. In most cases, and approximately as reported by my colleagues in American Immigration Lawyers Association, in over 89% of the cases, there is no detention at the border. Now, in the past, it was about 95 or 98% cases there was no detention. It was a quick processing. It would take usually around 3 to 5 days. But now the detention slightly increased, but they're brief detentions. And the reason why it increased is because of the scrutiny and because of the complaints against the federal government that the southern border is open, that there may be spies or threats to U.S. national security, somebody who could come in through the southern border, through the CBP1 process easily and then hurt the United States national interest. So that's why there is more questioning that's one of the news. There is more questioning at the border. There are some detentions, again, very limited and very rare. What increases the chances of detention is, not having a clear and concise answers, not giving clear and concise answers as to the reason of arrival in the United States, not being able to answer the questions properly, and also, if your name is in the list, or if there is a suspicion that you might be associated with groups or governments that might hurt the U.S. national interest, that can cause problems, and that could be the reason for detention. Again, even if there is detention, it's very brief, but there are prolonged detentions, or there may be expedited removal, where you are not going to have a chance to present your case to immigration judge if you're not well prepared. And that is more prevalent now than it was before. In the past, when this program just started, the number of individuals arriving at the southern border was so much, and they didn't have clear guidance as to what necessarily do, and the officers would just basically look at the passport, register, and do some kind of basic background check based on the name and last name, and they would let the applicants in. Again, I'm not saying that doesn't happen. Still, it does, but there is more chance of more questions at the border. So what is the current wait time? That's what everybody wants to know. How long it will take you to wait in Mexico until your appointment is scheduled, when you can come in and enter the United States. Currently, from what is being reported to me by my clients who consult with me almost on a daily basis, individuals who entered through CBP1 process, and based on the reports from my colleagues, it currently takes about 2 to 3 months. So a lot of the CBP1 entrants report that it took them about 2 months of wait time, 8 weeks or so of wait time in Mexico. Now, the wait time in Mexico, it may be dangerous. Depends on where you stay. Some of my clients report they had to change hotels. They were being approached by a bunch of criminal groups or fraudsters who were telling them to do one thing or another, or offering them to cross the border illegally, and being a little bit aggressive about it, rather than waiting for the CBP1 processing. So plan ahead, be prepared. And I also have clients, who registered, and then they were chilling as a vacation there in Mexico until they got scheduled for the interview. How do they process these CBP1 registrations? How do they decide who's going to be coming first for the interview? How does the CBP1 process these applications? The way it works, as CBP currently reported to us, to immigration lawyers, is that the 60% of the CBP1 applicants are being processed in the first come, first serve order. So if you register today, you should expect there is a 60% chance you will wait for another 2 months or so while in Mexico until you will be able to be processed through the border and enter the United States. About 40% of the cases is random selection. So those who register with CBP1 app, wait in Mexico, it's a random selection. You can call it a lottery. Some of them can be randomly selected for an appointment the next day, or within 5 days or 2 weeks, anywhere, again, between all this 2 months, 3 months time, it can be randomly at any point. So they process 40% randomly, 60% in first come, first serve order. Therefore, you may hear someone today who's going to say it took me 3 days to wait, and somebody else may say it took me 2 months to wait. That's just because the person who entered within 3 days was lucky. Their registration was within those 40% of randomly chosen cases. Again, there is no criteria. They don't look at the nationality, ethnicity to decide, who's going to come in first. It's just random 40%. The rest are in line until the CBP officer gets to them. The important thing what not to do is do not cross illegally. I do frequently have clients who consult with me after they enter the United States or hire us to process their asylum applications, and they tell me they crossed the border illegally, then they were detained, or some don't get even detained. They just don't get apprehended because nobody notices they did that. But that's very bad. There are many reasons why not to cross illegally. Number one, if you cross the border without the CBP1 process, you cross it without inspection. Number one, it's dangerous, right? So you're taking these steps, whatever it is, jumping over the fence, or swimming across the river, or walking across the desert. It's all dangerous. We do frequently get reports of individuals being abused, being suffering, whatever the medical conditions they have, or people dying while doing all this type of stuff. When you are approached by someone who's offering you to cross the border illegally, that's a criminal group. They're smugglers. They are making a living off of it, and they don't treat you guys like humans, and they're doing. We hear a lot of stories where somebody pays significant amount of money, and they're just basically brought to the border and told to do whatever you want. So we did our job. We basically brought you to the border, and now walk across miles of the desert. So it's dangerous. You don't want to be dealing with these criminal groups, organizations. There are cases of abuse of minors, females, and so on. Don't do it. You are putting yourself and your family under a significant risk trying to enter the United States illegally, trying to circumvent the CBP1 process. Second reason why you don't want to do it is because the U.S. federal government is trying to discourage and encourage everybody to use CBP1, and that's why through the executive order there is a transit ban law, which is a ban for asylum for those who enter the United States illegally, based on the presumption that they are not eligible for asylum since they crossed through third countries, at least Mexico, right? Because you have to arrive in Mexico. So you have a burden of proof that it was not safe, or you could not apply for asylum in Mexico. There are parts of Mexico that are pretty safe. So don't assume that you're just going to be able to say that the entire Mexico is not safe. That's why I did not apply for asylum there. So it's very difficult to overcome that transit ban. There is a litigation ongoing, and this transit ban may be struck down because there is this gray area where the executive branch, the president, could do that without act of Congress. So that's where the issue is, and it may be in violation of the UN Convention on the Status of Refugees. So, but in any case, the transit ban is in place, and if you enter the United States without inspection, circumventing CBP1 process, you will have much uphill battle and higher burden to get asylum approved. Number three, you will not be eligible for employment authorization document as soon as you enter the U.S. You will have to file for asylum, wait for 5 months to apply for EAD, and then it will take another 30 days at least until you get your EAD. Where CBP1 entrants can apply for work permit immediately. You don't even have to wait for the asylum. There is filing fee of $410 involved, but for the entry without inspection, there is not even a chance to apply for EAD upon entry. Number four, entry into the United States illegally without inspection is a federal crime. Not only it's an immigration violation, but it's also a crime punishable by imprisonment. And to discourage everyone from doing that, where there is this orderly CBP1 process. I mean, again, there is argument whether it's orderly or not, because people wait for a long time in Mexico. But still, the U.S. government is now prosecuting those who enter the United States illegally, circumventing the CBP1 process. I've at least had one personal encounter with a client who was put in federal prison, found guilty, and had to remain in prison until his sentence was over, until he was eventually detained by immigration afterwards. And then we got him released on bond, and then we filed for his asylum application. But he had to spend time in prison. And that's a negative record, that it's a criminal violation, a federal violation. It goes in your record. If you're planning to build your life in the United States, That's always going to be staying in your record that you were charged or, convicted of the federal crime of crossing the border illegally. So they do that more often than ever before. So don't do it. Don't risk that. And finally, generally, it's not even a violation of immigration status if you use or if immigration laws, if you use the CBP1. Basically, with CBP1, you're not doing anything immoral, illegal, or criminal. You are coming to Mexico. You're registering through this app. You're asking to be paroled into the U.S., which is a legal process. Anyone can apply for parole. Most cases get denied, but CBP1, almost all cases get approved. You get parole through CBP1 as long as you have fear of persecution. So if you don't express that you do, or they believe that you're making it up because you're so blatantly lying about things at the border, then they can order expedited removal even through CBP1 and may not let you in. But typically that doesn't happen. Or for example, in the case if you filed for a marriage-based petition or family petition, but you don't want to wait that long due to backlogs, and you try to use CBP1, that basis probably you're going to be more likely detained, and you may be ordered removed through expedited removal without having a chance to present your case to the immigration judge or even enter the United States. So things can happen. That's why, again, CBP1 is for asylum applicants, for emergencies, where there is a risk of, there is a fear of persecution, risk to life, safety, health, well-being, of the applicant in their country. So that's what CBP1 is for, and that's what it's designed for. So don't do that. The other issue I hear from some of my clients and my colleagues is groups that are involved in trying to circumvent the system. They help, so they call it help individuals to register with CBP1, and they try to use different fraudulent mechanisms to circumvent the orderly first come first serve process by registering multiple CBP1 applications for the same individual, or by registering their CBP1 application without the applicant actually being in northern or central Mexico. They make money. They charge a lot of money. From one of the reports recently, I heard that it cost them, this family, $10,000 to pay to do that. And the federal government, and including Mexican government, are now trying to cracking down on those. They are, they are investigating. They are observing these groups and individuals. There are some of them that have already been detained. Some of them are being interrogated. And eventually they'll probably end up in prison, either in Mexico or in the United States, for doing this. Those individuals that actually ask for money and do these fake CBP1 registrations for individuals who are not even in the United States. Because everybody wants their case to be moving faster. They want to enter the US faster. So you can understand the motivation behind those individuals who try to do this or use this. It's also somewhat immoral for them to do it, because there are lots of individuals who are going through this orderly process in the way that they should, where they register and they patiently wait until their turn, their line comes, and they are called for the interview at the border. And then there are individuals who are, and that contributes, there are individuals that do everything they can to circumvent through fake, applications, multiple registrations. And in that case, then it hurts everyone, and that contributes to the backlog and the long wait times for everyone. So don't do it. The other reason you don't want to do it, again, because you're going to be caught. You will be caught one way or another. When they catch those individuals who did this registration, you can understand the U.S. federal government is very powerful, right? So we have IT departments that are protecting U.S. national security, right? So they are probably the most powerful IT department in the world is the U.S. federal government, and the IT department within U.S. federal government, within the Department of Homeland Security, NSA, FBI, and so on. And they're dedicating now a lot of attention to this to crack down. They see if the CBP application has been registered for multiple individuals from the same phone, from the same IP address, and they crack down, and then they question you, the applicant. Or if you somehow don't get detected, eventually they catch those individuals and they find out that this individual who was making money by circumventing CBP1 process registration, that they registered your CBP1 application. So in those cases, then you're going to suffer, because when you enter the U.S. to apply for asylum, your credibility is probably the most important part of your asylum case, is your credibility, what you say, whether you're a believable person or not. But if you started the process through this fraud, and you, while you were in your country, somebody registered with CBP1 for you so you could go before others, that's going to be problematic. So that's going to be problematic, and your asylum case may be denied. For everyone who joined now, thank you so much. This is a simultaneous live stream on YouTube, our YouTube channel, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and on Facebook. So I greatly appreciate you joining this live stream. This is a weekly live stream of IS Law Firm, of me, Ismail Shahtakhtinski. I'm the principal attorney here at IS Law Firm. And we have this weekly live stream at 12:30 p.m. in New York time every week, where I talk about the immigration news, immigration topic, and I answer questions from our audience. You have a chat section on YouTube, and you have comment section on Facebook. I believe all of this appears here. I'm using the StreamYard, which is a streaming software which basically combines all of those together. If you post your questions in the chat section, you see where I posted the links, how you can schedule an individual consultation with me or any other attorneys at our law firm. You can use that. And you can post your question. It doesn't have to be necessarily related to CBP1, to the topic of today's live stream. It can be on any immigration topic, any immigration question. As I said, I'm an immigration lawyer. I've been practicing immigration law here in the US, helping thousands of individuals with their asylum applications, work visas, green cards, marriage-based cases, citizenship cases for over 16 years. We have staff, multilingual staff that speaks multiple languages. You can see on our website all of that information, and multiple lawyers who are experienced in various fields who can help you with your questions. So, but for now here, you can post your questions in the chat section, and I will answer all of those questions. So, CBP1, continuing on the CBP1 updates. So don't use those fraudsters. They're traced, they're caught, and your case will significantly be damaged. I mean, it's not a theory. I'll tell you this way. I do have a client who is now worried because they have been called for interrogation by the FBI and DHS on the questions on using somebody to register their CBP1 app while they were outside of it. And it's very easy to find out, right? The government can easily find out, because they see when you enter the Mexican border, when you entered Mexico, and then they see when your CBP1 app was registered, it was downloaded, and when your name was entered into it, and so on and so forth. So there is a mismatch, because if you register today and then you enter to Mexico, 10 days after, then obviously you paid someone and used these illegal ways of registering with CBP1. So don't do it. It's going to hurt your case. There are investigations, and it will eventually catch up and hurt your case. The government is conducting more background checks at the border. That's another reason why it's taking a little longer than before. Now, we always used to recommend, and still do, but do it a lot more and insist on it more now, to prepare your entire asylum case even before you arrive at the US border. And the reason being, it, as I said, there is a lot more questioning now. There is a chance they can actually conduct you what's called credible fear interview at the border when you when you have your appointment. And that's the reason why you should have your case ready. So you have to be prepared to give thorough, detailed, and concise answers to questions. Everything you say can be noted in your file and it will stay with your case. If you say today that I'm afraid this will happen to me in my country at the border, and then you enter the US, and when you file asylum application, you remember something else had happened to you or could happen to you, that's a mismatch that can be used against you. And some of the government attorneys will ruthlessly, what I mean is prosecutors in immigration court, can ruthlessly use that against you just to put roadblocks in your way of getting asylum. So don't risk it. This is a significant step in your life that you're taking. It's best to be prepared ahead of time. If you decided that you're coming to Mexico and you're going to come to the US border and apply for CBP1 process to apply for asylum to enter the US, get in touch with an immigration lawyer beforehand. Make sure you have your asylum declaration, written statement. Basically, if you were opening a business, you would create a business plan, put down your thoughts on a paper. So here you have to put down what happened to you, what's the reason, what are the issues you had, and why you're afraid to go back to your home country. Put it down together and have it prepared. It's best to also have your asylum application form prepared because it contains a lot of biographical information which will help the CBP officers to understand and identify who you are. Are you going to pose a national security threat to the United States? Are you a flight risk, and so on? If you have a sponsor, basically with CBP1, you usually have somebody in the US who's going to vouch for you that they will provide you place to stay and so on, as long as needed. You don't have to stick with that sponsor. You don't have to stay where they are. You can find a job. You can actually move in the United States as much as you want freely, that you're not restricted to living with that sponsor. But at least you have somebody who's demonstrating to the US government that you're not going to become a burden on the taxpayer. You're not going to come to the US and be in the streets homelessly, forcing the US government and US population to provide assistance for you. So that's why having a sponsor is important. Again, they don't have to affirmatively pay you anything. They're basically just an individual here who's saying that, hey, I have a place to stay. I'm willing to cover whatever expenses needed to make sure this person doesn't become a public charge. There is no specific sponsorship form that they need to complete, but it's a good idea. There is a form I-134, which is a simple form, which we'll use liberally for many immigration cases. And that can be completed. But even if not, at least you should get from that sponsor, from relative, friend, acquaintance, or friend of friend, doesn't matter who they are to you. You should get at least, maybe a copy of their tax return, proof that they have a place to stay, and a letter basically confirming. Those are minimum things that a letter from that individual, a sworn statement saying that, okay, I know this, and I know so they'll come, and I'm willing to provide whatever is needed for them to make sure that they don't become homeless, they don't basically cause issues to the US taxpayer or US population. So that's what I recommend to do with the sponsor, to have it thoroughly prepared, bring evidence in support of your case. Part of it could be also country conditions reports. Now, that's not as important as having your entire asylum story, your asylum declaration prepared well ahead, so that you don't give wrong information, you don't make mistakes answering questions, and you're prepared when you're asked, and you have something in writing. Maybe that's also translated into English if that's not your language, you're not fluent or you're not comfortable. So that can also help you pass through the CBP1 process much more freely and easier. I don't know if there is an issue with posting questions, because typical on these live streams, we have a bunch of questions. I don't see any question posted here. If anyone can just post just a simple hi, I want to make sure that I'm not missing anything. Let's see. I'm going to check on the settings. If anyone, I greatly appreciate. I see there are a bunch of people watching this on different channels, whether it's on Facebook, YouTube, or anything. If you can just post something to Wave so that I know that there is no issue with posting, then that would be great. Other than that, if I don't see, yes, so I see there is a question, but if my wife is, yes, I see one question now just got posted, and RG posted hi. Thank you so much, RG, and thank you, Jordani, for your question. So let me answer this question. Again, if anybody has any questions related to immigration law, immigration procedures in the United States, post your questions here, and I will do my best to answer as much as I can before we end this live stream. We have weekly live stream, usually. Thank you, Jordani. I also saw your hi. Hi to you as well. So we do have this weekly live stream. Now, I do want to mention about next week. I have a crazy week next week. I'm flying to California for individual hearing in immigration court in Santa Ana Immigration Court. Then from there, I'm flying to Chicago, Illinois for another individual hearing. Going to be, refreshing my preparations in between. Then after that, I'm flying back, and I have the individual hearing the day immediately after that here in Annandale Immigration Court, which is Washington, D.C. area. And then I have another hearing on Friday. So next week is going to be crazy. I'm not going to be able to do any of the live streams. I do have weekly live stream on our Russian-speaking channel for individuals from post-Soviet Union countries every Tuesday at 2 p.m. and here on the English channel at 12:30 p.m. or every Thursday. But next week, we're going to have to skip. So want to give you all heads up why we don't have it scheduled. So hopefully the week after that I can resume, but next week is one of the busiest weeks. And I'm not talking about the appointments and consultations and calls with clients I have in between, but almost, I think every day on next week I have hearings in immigration courts, and in different parts of the country. That's why we'll have to skip. So again, I apologize for the delay, Jordani, and let me answer your question. If my wife is in the U.S., do you think she can apply for me for green card if I enter the U.S. with CBP1? Besides, I apply for asylum. Jordani, no, unfortunately, not with a green card. So if your wife was a U.S. citizen, I mean, eventually she'll become, if she has a green card, right? So once she becomes, then she can. But with a green card, she can apply for you, but you will have to eventually at one point leave the U.S. if she's still a green card holder when this process is over. Meaning when the USCIS approves the petition, if your wife is still green card holder, for your interview to get your green card immigrant visa, you will have to leave the U.S. and go to U.S. consulate. You can request advanced parole. Well, no, you're not going to be able to request advanced parole because with CBP1, your case is going to be in immigration court. So your only chance will be to ask for the withdrawal of your asylum and ask for voluntary departure, to go to U.S. consulate abroad, to go through the interview so that you can return as a permanent resident through marriage. That's risky. So in practice, here's how it works. If you enter with CBP1 and you apply for asylum, you're likely going to have hearings based on the current condition of immigration courts, the backlogs. You're probably going to have your master hearing within a year or two, and then most likely you're going to have your individual hearing within another 2 years or so. By that time, your wife can become a U.S. citizen, and if she does, then you don't have to leave. Then you can file for adjustment of status in the U.S. Now, if you enter the U.S., that's another reason I didn't mention. If you enter the United States without inspection, meaning you cross the border without CBP1, that's not going to work for you. You cannot adjust your status in the U.S. under any circumstances except through asylum. And there are narrow exceptions, U visa, victim of crime, or violence against a woman act, domestic violence by a U.S. citizen spouse or so on, or green card holder spouse. But Other than that, you cannot adjust your status in those cases. But in this case, if you entered with CBP1, you are parolee, you didn't violate, you entered with inspection. And if your wife is a US citizen, then you will be able to adjust your status in the US. The reason is to adjust status in the US, to get green card in the US, you have to be in status for every category, for employment-based, for your green card wife to be able to sponsor you. But immediate family member of a US citizen is an exception. So if your wife becomes a US citizen, then you'll be able to do that. And you don't have to withdraw your asylum case. You can still get asylum because green card through marriage or green card through employment, generally green card doesn't give you the same protections that asylum does. And many don't know this. As a green card holder, as a permanent resident, you can still have it and you can still apply for asylum, asking for protections that asylum laws give you, like, for example, a refugee travel document or eligibility for benefits, social benefits that regular green card holders are not eligible for, or even protection from deportation that regular green card holders may not have. If you commit certain types of crimes and so on, asylees are more protected in the United States. Okay, the next question I have is, if someone already entered illegally without CBP1, is there anything we can do to fix it? No, I mean, if they applied for asylum, that is all they could do, and the asylum is pending. If they entered in the past, before the transit ban was enacted, which was last year, so if they entered before that, then there is not, they don't have the transit ban. If they haven't been prosecuted as a federal crime for entering illegally, then they're not going to do it anymore. They usually do it right there and then when you enter the US. So, I wouldn't worry about it if it was before last year, before 2022, before the transit ban was enacted. And there is not much they can do. I mean, it's like asking, if you commit a crime, can you clean it up? I mean, the only way he can, or he or she can fix it is they prove their asylum case. They have a reason why they did it, because of the fear of persecution. And if the CBP1 process didn't exist at that time, which it didn't before last year when it started, I mean, before actually this year. Again, I should know the exact date. Sorry, everyone. I don't have the exact date when the CBP1 process started. And I keep saying last year. I think it was the beginning of this year. But anyway, you can look it up. It's very easy online. So if that's the case, then the transit ban doesn't apply and those issues don't apply. But they cannot fix it. I mean, they already entered without inspection. If they leave, abandoning their asylum, trying to enter with CBP1, they can accrue unlawful presence and they can accrue a ban for 3 years or 10 years. So bottom line is, don't try to do anything to fix it unless you consult with an immigration lawyer and you have clear path on what can be done, if anything. RG is asking, can asylum seeker apply to green card while staying USA? Yes, of course. Asylum seeker can apply for green card based on asylum, but as to any other categories other than marriage with a U.S. citizen, U visa, victim of crime, victim of trafficking, or Violence Against Women Act, other than those narrow exceptions, or through marriage with a U.S. citizen, or a child over 21 who's a U.S. citizen, sponsoring parent, other than those, you have to have a valid status in the U.S. So waiting for asylum, being an asylum seeker, is not an immigration status. It doesn't give you a status. It gives you a right to stay in the U.S. You can remain in the U.S. That's lawful presence. And these are two separate notions. So, for example, if you enter the United States as a visitor on B1, B2 visa, there is a notion of visa, which is stamping your passport. For some countries, it's usually 1 year. For some countries, it's 3-year visa, 5-year, 10-year visas. Basically, it's a document for you to enter the United States. That's visa in your passport. The moment you enter the US, that visa is irrelevant. That's it. You only needed it to enter the US. That's it. That visa is put aside. A lot of people confuse this. That's why I'm trying to explain this. Then once you enter the US, at the border, the Customs and Border Patrol is going to give you a stamp, put a stamp, and they used to give I-94s. Now they enter it online, and you can retrieve it, which will give you a status based on that visa. So you have a B1, B2 visa as a visitor, you enter the US, then you will have a status, and that's 6 month status. Doesn't matter if you have a 10-year visa, when you enter, they give you 6 months status on your B2 visa as a visitor, right? So they give you 6 months status. That is status. Imagine if you are here for 6 months as a visitor, and then you decided to apply for asylum. You applied for asylum, whether it's before or after the B1, B2 status expired, the 6 months expired. You applied for asylum, and you got the receipt saying you applied, asylum is pending, and the same receipt will say you can remain in the US until we schedule an interview, make a decision, or so on. During that time, your status 6 months expires. Then you lose your status. You no longer have a status. You have no lawful status in the US. But because you have a pending asylum application, you are lawfully present. You're allowed to remain in the US, right? So that's the difference between visa status and lawful presence in the US. Now, what happens if you applied, if you're waiting for asylum, your B1, B2 expired, you're waiting for asylum, and now you got an employer who's sponsoring you, and it's time for you to apply for a green card based on that employer's petition. You don't have a status. So to apply for change of status in the US to that of a green card holder from B2 to green card, to apply for adjustment of status, that's the proper word to use for that process, you have to have a status. So if you don't have a status, just as the name suggests, adjustment of status. You cannot adjust something if you lost whatever you're trying to adjust to the next thing. So adjustment of status, you need to have a status, valid status. Otherwise, you cannot. There are narrow exceptions, as I said. One of them is not so narrow, is a marriage with a US citizen. Then you can still adjust your status even if you lost your status. If it's employment-based, there is a 245K exception. If it's been less than 6 months, you lost your previous status, you can still qualify for adjustment of status to employment. There was a process through which we were arguing that the loss of status was technical reasons. If you applied for asylum before you lost your status, and it was technical reasons because the asylum processes are taking so long. But then that was not necessarily based on precedent, but it was based on the part of the precedent which wasn't directly on point, but suggested that. But the USA has cracked down on it, and they're now denying a lot of those. Some of you may have heard it's a matter of L-K case based where you could potentially apply for adjustment of status while you're waiting for asylum without having a previous status. Without maintaining your previous status. So anyway, the bottom line is, RG, if you are an asylum seeker and you have employer who's sponsoring you or family member and so on, or other bases you have, consult with a lawyer based on US. I mean, you saw how many twists are there, right? There are exceptions, narrow exceptions, how long you've been out of status, what kind of status you had, so on and so forth. It all matters a lot. So consult with an immigration lawyer. I'm sorry I cannot give you full answer without knowing all of the details of your case. Okay, Passy Big writes, I get my refugee travel document in the same time I have I-485 on the file to adjust my status with my wife, US citizen. Is it safe for me to travel out of USA? Yes, I say yes, it is. If you have a refugee travel document, so I understand that means you are a refugee. You already got a refugee status or asylum status, and you have I-485 based on your marriage with a U.S. citizen. I don't know why you would file that. If you already got asylum status, why not just apply for asylum based on, for a green card based on your asylum. But anyway, doesn't matter. You're still going to get a green card, and you still have your asylum and as a refugee travel document. Is it safe for you to travel outside of the US? Is it safe? What do you mean? Is it safe in terms of your well-being safe, or is it safe meaning will you be stuck abroad? And if that's the question, I can answer that. The rest you will know better. I mean, you are a refugee, so it depends where you're going. If you go back to your home country, is it safe physically? You will know the answer better. But in terms of legally, there is going to be a question, even if you do now have a U.S. citizen wife. But but at one point you applied for asylum, and now you got your green card, and you're going back, even though you're not getting your green card through asylum, but you're getting through your marriage with a U.S. citizen. The question still remains: how could you go back? How could you return to your country where you've been claiming that that danger awaits you, and now you got your green card through marriage, and you're going back to the same country? So that is a big question. It can cause significant issues if you're going back to your home country again. It can cause significant issues in terms of frivolous asylum application or misrepresentation, fraud, and so on and so forth. The other issue, based on what you described, I can see potential issues that you're applying for adjustment of status through marriage with a U.S. citizen. And in that process, there is a ground of inadmissibility based on any misrepresentation you may have made in the past when you applied, for example, for a visa before you came to the U.S. to apply for asylum, or when you filled out in your visa application, there is a question: have you ever been detained, arrested, and you didn't disclose it, and now in your asylum you did, and now you're marrying and maybe you're not disclosing that again. Anyway, that's very, very, very thin, narrow bridge you're walking on, so to speak. I don't know if there is such a proverb, but it's very dangerous what you're doing. You applied for asylum, then now your marriage-based adjustment status. I hope you did your homework, or you have an attorney who helped you with all this. It's very, very delicate process because of even ever so slight inconsistency that puts doubt either on your admissibility where your I-485 is going to be denied, or it puts doubt on your asylum case, and then that can be reopened, reconsidered, or in the worst case scenario, they can decide that you filed frivolous asylum application. But traveling outside of the U.S., the other twist there is that depends on how much time you spent in the U.S. Undocumented, without lawful presence before you applied for asylum. Remember, I gave you this hypothetical about a visitor applying for asylum 6 months later after they lost status. If you waited 6 more months or worked without authorization during your asylum application pending, then that time may not be considered as lawful presence. And if it's not, even if you travel with a refugee travel document, that is going to be held against you in terms of the ban, 3-year, 10-year ban. So there is a chance you may be banned from re-entering the United States if you travel now under these circumstances, if you have previously accrued 6 months or 12 months of unlawful presence. And because the reason why there is 6 months or 12 months is 6 months unlawful presence accrual causes you a 3-year ban from re-entering, meaning in practical terms, it means if you do this, you may be stuck for 3 years, and 10-year ban if you spent more than 1 year. So there are lots of intricacies, lots of details that I'm not able to tell you precisely because I don't know anything about your case, or how much time you spent before you applied for asylum, what was the basis for your asylum, what kind of issues you had in your country, where you're traveling, all of this together. That's a lot of information that attorney needs to know. Your wife is a U.S. citizen. Okay, congratulations. Oh, that's okay. That's related to the question you previously asked about if my wife is in the U.S., do you think she can apply for me for green card if I enter the U.S. with CBP, besides I apply for asylum? Okay, now it's clear, Jordan. All right. So anyway, still congratulations that your wife is a U.S. citizen. That's great. Yes. So the answer then is much more simpler. So as long as you are admissible, as long as you didn't misrepresent any information, you didn't provide false information in the CBP1 process or in your asylum claim, then yes, your wife can sponsor you in general. Again, for the specifics of whether there are issues, that would be, when you handle the case, when you go into it. But generally, the answer to your question is yes. Now, that's different from initially. I thought your wife was a green card holder. I may have misread. RG says, can you please advise? Well, by the way, your question starts, can you please advise? I do want to highlight, this is not I'm not giving you legal advice in your case. The advice usually means I am giving you legal advice. No, I'm answering general questions here. It's unethical for me to give you legal advice and have you rely on this, on my answer, to go and run with it and take a step in your case. It's not because I am trying to be, stiff and not give you the full information. It's because you're gonna hurt yourself, right? So because you're asking somebody on a forum, on a live stream, a quick question, somebody who doesn't know anything about you. It's just like, imagine you're talking to a doctor, and doctor who didn't examine you, doesn't know your history, doesn't know anything. You're saying something hurts here, and the doctor prescribes you medicine, a very strong medicine, which you can only get through prescription, which has side effects, and prescribes and gives it to you and says, use it. Even if I do it, don't rely on it. Don't use it. Don't rely on what I tell you now to do these next steps, okay? This is general education, general information, general answers and guidance that I can provide through this. But I cannot give you legal advice on this forum based on these 2 lines of questions you wrote, and I have no information about your case. That's very dangerous for you. Don't rely on my advice. If you think it's a legal advice, don't rely on anybody else's advice that you read online. Somebody just said, do this, you'll be good. That's very dangerous for you, for your well-being, for your case, and for the result of your case. So I cannot give you advice, all right? But I will do my best to answer this question in general terms without kind of causing you serious issues potentially by giving legal advice without knowing the details of your case. All right, so asylum seeker waiting for hearing can apply for DV lottery while staying in the U.S. Anybody can apply for DV lottery while staying in the U.S., while here, while in the space, right? So as long as you have internet connection, you can apply for DV lottery. The question is, will you be able to adjust your status in the U.S. or go through U.S. consulate and obtain? That's very fact-intensive question, which requires a lot of information. And I answered already previously, if you apply for asylum, you're waiting for asylum. I don't want to be mean to you, RG, okay? Don't get me wrong. That's not right. I just don't want to hurt you by giving you some quick answer to seem like I'm so knowledgeable, and then you hurt yourself or your family or your immigration status. So the answer, it depends on a lot of factors. And as I said before about changing your status in the U.S. while you're waiting for asylum, just 5 minutes before I addressed that specific question, that included employment-based green card or diversity visa is one of them. If you get selected for diversity visa, then whether you'll be able to adjust status here or will you be able to go through U.S. consulate abroad depends on how you entered, how long you've been in the U.S. before you applied for asylum. Did you work without authorization before you applied for asylum? Have you violated your status or lawful presence in the U.S.? Is there any information that you provided that was not true when you entered the U.S. for asylum? It may not matter even if you've used fake passport or you used false information to enter the U.S. Or provided false information to the U.S. consulate when you applied for a visa, and you entered the U.S. and to apply for asylum because of the fear of persecution, that's going to be excused in the asylum context. Your asylum is not going to be denied. But if you're applying for a green card, whether here or through consulate, that's going to be a serious issue. You will be inadmissible. So there is that factor also you should consider. All right, Abdul but thank you for your question, Arji. That's a very relevant question. Abdul writes, can I-730 document? All right, I guess. All right, so here's the full question. I-730 type of document can be used for I-130. No, Abdul, it cannot. These are 2 different forms. I-730 is a form for asylee, somebody who's been granted asylum, to sponsor their immediate family members, their spouse, and children under 21. I-130 is for the U.S. citizen or green card holder to sponsor their children and under 21 and their spouse. So these are two different procedures: asylee sponsoring family members, or green card holder or citizen sponsoring. All right, world citizen. I like the name, the nickname. How long is the CBP1 wait time in Mexico after applying, and how long to get work authorization after entering the CBP1 asylum? So for asylum, so world citizen, as I said in the beginning, the whole point of today's live stream was on the CBP1 wait time. I guess you missed the beginning. Currently, the wait times are random, I should say, and typically it's up to 2 months, some report 3 months, but it's more anecdotally, typically about 8 weeks or so. But there is a 40% chance that it may be much shorter. And here is why: because the CBP processes all of these applications in order. 60%, not all of this. Okay, let me correct this. 60% of the CBP1 registrations are processed in first come, first served basis in the order of registration. 40% of the applications are processed randomly. So in practical terms, if you come to Mexico and register with CBP1 and wait, you may have to wait for 2 months. All right, again, typically based on the current processing, up to 2 months. It's going to get better because they're cracking down on those fraudsters who are registering multiple individuals in the same, or before they arrive in the US, in Mexico, and so on. They're actually registering multiple applications for the same individual. So it's going to get better. Okay, that's my opinion. Nobody can guarantee or promise anything, but you can wait for 2 months, or if you're lucky within those 40% of the applicants, then it can be within 2 weeks, 1 week, even 1 day. It's possible because, as I said, it's a random selection for the 40% of the applicants when their interview is going to be scheduled. Okay. All right. I did answer this question. HL or AI is asking. I like if it's AI asking a question from me. That would be awesome, wouldn't it? I got my asylum interview in July 3 months ago after 9 years, but I had to cancel. Cancel what? Oh, your interview. Okay, sorry. Got distracted. Now I want to reschedule. Will the reschedule appointment take a long time again? No, it won't. So officially the asylum office, and we have quarterly meetings with the asylum division director of the USCIS. Officially, they announced that the first priority in scheduling asylum cases is, I believe it's those cases that are, well, no, it is. Yeah, it's canceled. So basically the canceled, rescheduled interviews, they do it very, very fast. Sometimes we do have clients who have to cancel one reason or another. Something happens. They're somewhere. They may have taken a foreign trip with advanced parole while waiting for the asylum interview. That's more issued now than it used to be before. Or somebody may have a medical condition or something, or they couldn't find. There are many reasons why interviews get canceled. And when we do that, typically we have about 2 weeks or so wait time. In the most, I would say, was about 1 month or 2 months before they rescheduled asylum interview. They do it very fast. And a lot of times we have 1 or 2 weeks wait time once the interview is rescheduled. When you say you canceled, that there is no way to cancel. I mean, unless you withdrew your asylum case. If you you probably ask them to reschedule it, which they're probably working on. But if you sent them a letter saying that I want to cancel my interview, that's dangerous. They may have perceived it as abandonment of your asylum application, right? So follow up with them. Send them an email to the asylum office. Follow up and say, I want to schedule an appointment for my interview. I couldn't make it, but just be prepared. They may have terminated your asylum application if for the previous interview you didn't tell them you want to reschedule it because you have something going on or the reasons why you couldn't make it, and now you decided that okay, you want to have it. That might be too late. Don't want to scare you, AI, but do that. Send them an email. Find out if your asylum case is still actually pending. Actually, you can put the receipt number for your asylum case online and check the case status. All right, Life Racer is asking. By the way, guys, everybody, thank you for your great questions. But please press like. Please subscribe to our channel, like our page. That is the token of appreciation from you. That is, I greatly appreciate. Would be great if everybody who's listening us now just suddenly all together press like. That would be very helpful. Okay, Life Racer is asking, is it worth waiting for my appointment through CBP1 in Mexico rather than immediately crossing the border and surrendering myself to the officers like most other people do? No, most other people don't do it. Most other people don't. And those who do suffer. In the beginning, I don't want to waste everybody's time who actually watched the beginning of this live stream of this. Whoever is going to watch the recording, just rewind and listen to why you should not do this. Do the CBP1. There are 5 distinct reasons I explained not to do it. First, you will have much less chance of getting asylum approved because of this high burden of proof, which is called transit ban. Second, it's dangerous. It is you're dealing with criminals. It's dangerous what you're doing, even though it sounds like just crossing the border, stepping over it. Third, you may be criminally prosecuted, and there are individuals who are. I know individually a client of mine who was prosecuted and now has a federal crime in his record. He had to sit in federal prison, not immigration detention. Immigration detention is just a piece of cake. Federal prison, where this person was sitting with federal criminals, right? There's dangers. That's the traditional prison. And, things happen to people there. So you don't want to be there. Fourth, you're not going to be eligible for work permit after you enter the United States until you accrue 6 months for asylum. CBP1 does. And finally, you will not be eligible for adjustment of status, even if you marry with a U.S. citizen, if you enter this border. And even more than that, that's going to be a very negative factor for any kind of discretionary process, including asylum itself. So no, when you say like most other people do, I object to it. Don't say that. That's what criminals, that's what these smugglers want you to believe. That's a lot of rumors about CBP1 are being spread by those criminals and smugglers. They either want to make you pay money to these fraudsters so that they register you with CBP1 even before you arrive in Mexico, or they want to smuggle you or tell you what to do and, to come to the border and cross illegally by paying them money and do. So anyway, bottom line is don't do it. It's not a good idea. Again, it's your individual situation, right? If you have danger in Mexico and there is somebody's after you there, obviously that might be the only thing you can do, and it's your priority. But if you're doing it only because you wanted to be first, because you don't want to wait for 1 month, 2 months, or whatever in Mexico, you are significantly damaging your chances of applying grant of asylum. All right, RG writes, thanks. Thank you, RG, for your questions. Abdul Hakim asks, if someone has 2 nationality, can I apply for asylum in USA? Yes, you can, but you have to prove asylum from both of those nationalities, from both of those countries. By nationality, what I understand you mean is citizenship. Now, in the United States, the word nationality refers to the place where you were born and native. But it's used interchangeably. But if you're a citizen of another country, or even a green card or permanent resident of another country, you have a lawful refugee status or green card or citizenship in 2 different countries, and you're coming to the U.S. to apply for asylum, you have to prove that it's dangerous for you to return to both of those countries. So you have to basically apply for asylum for both of those countries that you're citizen. But if you were just born somewhere, but you don't have a citizenship or, lawful immigrant status there, then you don't have to. Just because you were born there doesn't cause, you don't have to prove asylum there. AI is asking another question. I got my asylum interview in last July after 9 years, but I had to cancel. Okay, I think I answered this one. All right, and I got, okay, AI, please don't post the same question multiple times. I don't want to be blocking anyone. Please don't. Ross Neal, any idea on wait times for I-134A waiting 6 months? My beneficiary is looking to cross illegally. Although advised against this, will I be held liable? So 134A refers to parole program, right? For Ukrainians, Venezuelans, Colombians. I believe they started for Ecuador, maybe not. The individuals from some of the countries, I believe Sudan has it. but I'm a lot more familiar with the Ukrainians because we work a lot. We help Ukrainians. We did a lot of pro bono work with Ukrainians during the crisis when it started, and unfortunately it continues today. But yeah, so the wait times, no, I don't. Unfortunately, Russ, I'm sorry to drag on answering this question. I don't. It's the the I-134A is something that is doesn't have legal representation. There is no attorney filing it for you. It's a straightforward process somewhat, but I hear different rumors there as well, but I don't want to give you false information as to how long it takes for the parolee through these parole programs. I would have to look that up, ask my colleagues, maybe somebody told you. Based on what some of my clients reported in the past, it took about 2 weeks in the beginning. I mean, I'm talking about Ukrainians again. We worked with Ukrainians a lot. And then I recently heard about 2 months, similar to CBP1 processing time. And I would suspect that it somewhat would be parallel to CBP1. As I said, it was about 2 weeks, 1 week, and now recently I heard two months or so. But don't hold it against me. Unfortunately, I don't have the fresh data about the parole program. Again, we're not talking about CBP1 asylum applicants, everybody, just so that you know. This is different. I-134A is to bring parolees into the U.S. temporarily due to the country conditions there. You'll probably have heard recently about Ukraine, Venezuela. They opened these programs for them. I'm not going back to my country. Passy is asking, and apply to asylum at the airport upon my arrival. I was granted asylum by the judge. I applied for adjustment of status with my wife because it will fast. Not necessarily it will fast. When you apply for a green card based on, for adjustment of status based on your marriage with your wife, the USCIS officer who's reviewing your case will have to still request your asylum file, review everything in the asylum file, compare everything. Without that, that wouldn't be diligent work. So it's not going to be that fast, just so that you know. Yes, it may be fast, and based on just generally looking at the processing times, it is faster for marriage-based case versus asylum adjustment. But again, you have to be careful, and it may not end up being fast, because what happens is the marriage-based officer opens their file, looks at it, and sees that you were granted asylum at one point. Now they have to get your entire asylum file and look through all that as well, and that can cause delay. I'm not saying it will, but over 16 years of my practice, I've seen significant delays in these types of cases. Hopefully it will not. Hopefully everything will work out very fast for you. Okay, is that? No, that's in Spanish. I don't know what it is, but it sounds like some kind of ad. It says, talks about making 750 euros. So I will have to block that user. Okay, okay, we answered this. Again, it's been a little over 1 hour. Again, everyone watching us, please do press like, please subscribe to our channel. I will answer the remaining questions, and next week we're skipping because of my crazy schedule. Next week I'm going to be flying to California for one individual hearing, then to Chicago, Illinois to another individual hearing, then returning here for another hearing, and I have a bunch of appointments in between. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to have the live stream next week, so we're going to skip that. But I will do my best to answer all of the remaining questions here, but please press like. Please don't leave this live stream without pressing like. I greatly appreciate that. All right. Can an Afghan person who has problem in Afghanistan and also has Turkish citizenship apply for asylum? Yes, again, as I said, it depends on what is the issue that you have in Turkey, right? So, well, Turkey now, as the name has been officially changed in the United Nations. So, Turkey, if you have citizenship in Turkey and you're applying for asylum, and when you say Afghan person, you just by ethnicity Afghani, Persian, Pashtun, or whatever, or you're a citizen of Afghanistan. So if you are a citizen of Afghanistan and you're a citizen of Turkey, then you have to apply for asylum from both of those countries. You have to demonstrate that you have fear of persecution, you have well-founded fear of persecution, you have danger in both of those countries. Okay, Elchin is asking, thank you for helping us understand the issue better. Thank you very much, Elchin, for your comment. I greatly appreciate this. The Welcome Corps, Sam is writing, the Welcome Corps US 5 citizens sponsoring refugees. Does it work for refugee from Ethiopia or Yemen citizenship? I believe it does, but the Welcome Corps, you have to go online to that website and look. Now, I haven't dealt with Welcome Corps personally, and Welcome Corps is basically sponsorship to the refugees to help them accommodate here, and to help them to have basically a sponsor here to help them with whatever they need in the United States. It's not a separate basis for the process. If there is a parole for Yemenis, I don't know about Ethiopian parole. I do have a lot of clients from Ethiopia for whom we applied for asylum, but I don't think there is a separate parole process for Ethiopians. But in any case, I would recommend to go to Welcome Corps website and look for that information. Live Racer writes, by the way, this time of the day is much better for us. If you could fix the same time for the live stream, it would be great. This is live stream. I don't know what you mean. Thank you very much for your feedback, Live Racer. If you don't mind, please writing, what do you mean this time? You mean starting at 1:30 p.m. or 1:45 p.m. And it's better for us, meaning you, but I would greatly appreciate if everybody could give me feedback. That would be awesome to know what's better. We do it on 12:30 p.m. New York time, Eastern time, is because we do represent clients from all over the United States and all over the world. As I said, I'm flying to immigration courts and representing clients in asylum cases and every type of immigration case all over the United States. But Eastern Standard Time, this is capital, and we also look at the time, lunchtime, so that you have opportunity for anybody who's working. But if anyone can please post your comment as to whether this time works, and if it doesn't work for you, or what time works better for you if we do these live streams, and why, what's the reason behind it, I'd greatly appreciate. But anyway, I'm really having a hard time getting people to just press like, so probably not that many people are gonna write the whole story about which time live stream they prefer or why. And I understand that. I don't blame anyone. I still appreciate you for joining us here and asking these great questions. So Maulbi, okay, I'm sorry. Maulbi at the church said, in Islamic religion, giving shelter or refuse is not a holding, but taking it because they said that why Iran is acting, helping Palestine, but not give. Test channel, I don't know why you're posting this here. I'm not gonna block you, but I don't think that helps. Thanks for answering. I contacted the USCIS already and said this. Yes, your attorney contacted our office to cancel the interview. We will schedule you when the resources permit. So I'm okay. Yeah, so you didn't cancel the interview. You basically, your attorney said schedule it, and that's why they're saying they will reschedule it. So it sounds like you're okay. Yes. All right. Fulpika is asking, are you allowed to get an immigration lawyer after you have submitted your application? Because money before applying might be an issue for some. Yes, of course. You're allowed to get an immigration lawyer at any point in your process, before, in between, after, you get asylum, you want to apply for a green card or bring relatives and so on. So there is no restriction into the time. Now, I guess to give you the more thorough answer to this question, more detailed answer, what's the benefit of getting a lawyer after you filed for asylum? So what we do is, if you filed for asylum, a lot of times you may have not filed the complete declaration. Even if you did, you believe that it's the way that it should be, but again, you're hiring a law firm, a lawyer. You don't have to. Nobody has to hire a lawyer, but you're hiring so that things are done better based on our experience, knowledge, and expertise. So What we do is we review what you filed. We see what else can be filed, what else can be gathered, whether we can expand on your declaration based on the actual facts, review it and say, okay, let's write about this more, or let's rephrase this, or let's use this additional information about your case or your country conditions. Then we do a thorough country conditions report and collect those State Department and other international organization reports and so on, with highlighting the similar cases, similar parts. We may engage an expert who may write an opinion. It all depends on you, how thoroughly, how deeply you want us to work. And as I said, revising your form, your application declaration, then we file this updated package, whether your case is with the USCIS, with the USCIS, or if it's an immigration court, with the immigration court. And while doing that, depending on your preference, if you want your case to be heard faster, we also use this opportunity to ask to the asylum office to schedule your interview as soon as possible, because now we have the full package. Now you have a lawyer. You are prepared for the interview whenever they schedule it. So once they schedule an interview, then we prepare you for the interview. I personally go with all of my clients to the interview as the time permits. Sometimes you may end up having to go with one of my colleagues here in our firm, or again, very rarely. So far, I haven't had to. Or if there is a conflict in my schedule, then we can also reschedule your asylum interview, and they usually do it briefly. Sometimes I speak to the officer on the phone. They call me to ask my availability. So there are multiple ways that we can do this, and it's very extremely important to make sure that your asylum application is properly updated and you are well prepared for your asylum interview. And it's never late to hire a professional to work on your case and to do the best out of it. So yes, Fubika, we'll be glad to help you, or any other competent immigration lawyer law firm will be glad to take your case, update it, review it, revise it, and prepare you for the interview to maximize and increase your chances of asylum grant. All right, Sam is asking, how long is the I-130 wait? I applied for my sister and it's been 5 years. Okay, let's stop right there. Your wait is going to be about 16 years. So whether I-130 is approved within 5 years, 10 years, 12 years, or 1 year or 1 month, in the case of applying for your sister, has no meaning whatsoever. It only would have had if there was, well, no, it doesn't have any meaning whatsoever. Absolutely no meaning, because your sister will have to wait for approximately 16 years, but also depends on which country is she from. She's a citizen of Philippines, India, China, and so on. Some of those countries, the sister may wait for 20 plus years. So if you're sponsoring your sister, there is a 16 years of wait time, and it's not a wait time in the US, it's wait time outside of the US. Or if she's in the US in another status, yes, so it's unrelated to this. The other challenge I have, people have often, or I have with clients who consult with me on this, is sometimes people apply for this, file a petition for their sibling, not knowing that they're actually hurting their sibling by doing that. And here's why. If you sponsor your sibling, let's say you have a sister or brother outside and you're a US citizen and you file a petition for them, you are basically showing to the USCIS, to the US government, that this sibling of yours wants to immigrate into the US. And this process is going to take about 16 years of wait time, or more, as I said, not less at this point. And in the last several years, it has only in the last many years, it hasn't been less than that. And during those next 16 years, if your sibling applies for a visitor visa or for a student visa or exchange program, guess what? They have a record that the sibling is waiting to immigrate, is eager to immigrate to the US, and they're not going to be approved. Most likely, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it will significantly damage their chances of getting a visitor visa or so on. So anyway, the bottom line is, unfortunately, Sam, I don't want to spoil your day, but 5 years, 10 years, the reality is about 16 years it's going to take. The I-130 approval is just an administrative process in between. It has no meaning whether it's approved in 5 years or 10 years or more for this case. I see you posted form Ethiopia citizen for the previous I-130 question. Okay, got it. Yeah, it doesn't change. Well, it does change. It's 16 years. So at least it's not 20 plus years. AI, thank you so much for responding. Really appreciate your live stream, and this time works. Thank you very much for you. And I don't know if you are L or AI. The English language, I made a post recently about it. English alphabet needs to revise this capital I letter and lowercase l, because look at this. H, is it AI or is it L? Who knows? Anyway, I assume that it's L. Sorry for butchering if that's your name and I was calling you AI. But anyway, so they have to come up with some way to differentiate between lowercase l and the capital letter I. Otherwise, there's a lot of confusion. I think your live stream previously was at 5-7 a.m. in our local time in Turkey. I was struggling to be awake to attend the live stream. It is still the same time. It's at 12:30, and I appreciate it, Live Racers. Thank you so much. I mean, I cannot imagine me waking up at 5-7 a.m. to do the live. I mean, waking up probably, but making the live stream at 5-7 a.m. So I see how it matters for you, and I appreciate it that you've actually waken up at 5-7 a.m. to watch my live stream. But it has been the same time in terms of our time. But there is as you know, in the United States, we have this stupid system, excuse my language, the daylight savings time, where 1 hour goes here and there, and it's about to change very soon again, where we're gonna shift the time 1 hour backwards again. Anyway, so that might have also affected and contributed between the time difference. But 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, New York time, is when the live stream is. We may adjust it, but as I said, next week, unfortunately, I'll have to skip it because of all my business travels and immigration court hearings. Okay, I looked at this one, and the last question I will answer: if someone applies for asylum with original nationality and hides the second citizenship, will he face a problem? If someone steals and nobody finds out, will they face a problem? That's a similar question. Yeah, it's bad. It's fraud. It's hiding your information, misleading the immigration. They will face the problem. That's cause for denial. That's cause for deportation. You may be banned forever from applying for any immigration benefit if you hide that information. So yes, of course, they'll face a problem, and it's not a difficult thing for the U.S. federal government to find out. So don't underestimate. A lot of people, I always say that every live stream I do say this, and I will repeat it again. There is this wrong perception that a lot of people don't get caught. They present false cases, false asylum, false fake marriage cases, and so on. They don't get. That's a wrong perception. A lot of people get caught. Most people, I should say, get caught. They end up forever losing their chances of remaining in the U.S., but they don't share. They hide this information, right? So your friends, relatives, somebody who left the U.S., they said they had a better opportunity in some other country. They have an uncle who helped them with a business in Dubai and so on. Most of those people got caught and they got deportation order. They can never build their life in the U.S. anymore because they committed fraud. It's just they don't share. But those who didn't get caught, they share all of this information that I've entered into fake marriage, or I did provide false statement for my asylum and I got asylum, and even they get caught. But until they get caught, for those years that until they get caught, they're bragging about it, they're vocal about how they did this and it worked, so everybody should do this. And that's why there is a perception, there is a general understanding that, it works. That's how fraudsters work. That's how, those fortune readers work, right? So they make mistakes in 100 times reading fortune. Nobody goes and tells their friends and relatives, I went to this fortune reader, they made a mistake. That's not news. Everybody's going to be laughing at you for going to a fortune reader, right? But if the fortune reader is right in one of the 100 cases, that person is going to go tell their all relatives, oh my gosh, this fortune reader found out that I have a child whose name starts with letter M, right? There's 31 letters in the alphabet. So 1 in 31, this fortune reader is going to, and this person is going to be like, oh my gosh, this fortune reader is so amazing. Everybody go and see this fortune reader. And the people that go there and their fortune is misread, they're not going to go and be happy about it or be bragging to their friends and relatives that I went to this fortune reader, paid $100, and this fortune reader was full of crap. Nobody's happy about it. So that's how fortune readers, that's how these things work. And that's how this rumor spread that the US federal government immigration services are dumb. You can lie to them and you will not get caught. No, you will. A lot of people get caught. They come to us, to immigration lawyers. That's how I know you don't, right? So they come to us after they get caught, looking for ways, for things to hold on to. There are some narrow circumstances where we can help them, such as, being a victim of the fraud or crime, U visa, or getting some kind of status, or getting some kind of waiver for them. But a lot of times there is nothing much we can do. So don't do it. Don't hide the information. Don't misrepresent. That can cause serious problems. And the answer is yes. Will he face a problem? Most likely. All right. Thank you so much for everyone for your questions. Thank you for your, straightforward, forthcoming questions. And I appreciate everyone who joined. Please join us, but not the next week. Again, next week, unfortunately, I have to skip. The week after that, on Thursday, we'll do it again at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, New York time. Please don't leave this live stream without pressing like. And if the live stream ends before you're able to do so, please press like afterwards. And please subscribe to our channel and send us your relatives and friends who want to either join these live streams or schedule consultations. The links are in the description and also in the chat section. Thank you all so much and have a great rest of the week. Nice Friday and great weekend. Bye-bye.